Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. This is CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom, and you're watching another episode of Wyrds, Witches, and Witchcraft. And I'm here with my co-host, Obsidian Fire. Say hello.
Hey. Bonjour tout le monde, je suis Obsidian Fire, je suis française, résident en France et je suis la nouvelle animatrice, co-animatrice de CricketSong pour cette nouvelle saison.
Yay, bonjour, bonjour, yay.
Bonjour tout le monde.
So this week it is another pre-recorded video, but don't worry, our live streams will be starting in October. And at some point, I'm not sure where this episode will fall, but either Aaron Lozano has been on the show, or I will have him in the future. Not sure where this is falling, but he's going to be here at some point in September, because I imagine these videos, you're watching them and it is the month of September. So it's not too far from when we actually start our live streams. So keep watching for that. This week, Obsidian Fire and I are going to be discussing the witch's relationship with the gods. We have a whole series, the witch's relationship with the watchtowers, the witch's relationship with the elements, with the ancestors, with the beloved dead, with familiars, with fae, with witches, with cowens. It's going to be a big series, but we're starting with the gods. So, witch's relationship with the gods. I guess, we can start with our discussion about whether we have specific matron or patrons that we work with. Maybe that would be a good place to start, you think?
Yeah, it's the best place to start, I think, because coming from there, we can then exchange and chit-chat and see how it goes. So do you start or do I?
You can start.
All right. So, yeah, I'm currently working with a patron god and a matron goddess. It's a thing that I didn't think about previously, but it came to me, and it came to me at a very young age, family. So it was meant to be, I suppose. So,
have you always worked with the same matron and patron throughout this whole time?
Well, it seems that they follows me since a very long time, even if I wasn't aware of it, or I may say I wasn't totally aware of it, because my matron goddess make herself known when I was 13 years old. So I am almost 40 now, so you can see it's a very long time. But I didn't recognize the calling for the reason that I didn't know what was a calling, and it took me a lot of time. As if you have watched the previous episode, you know that I'm coming from a bit of hectic path in my life, so it was difficult for me to accept what I am.
So this particular goddess has been with you for many years. Do you think have you ever worked with any other goddess, or was it only?
No, I didn't work with anyone else, and I think it seems that my patron god is also with me since quite a good piece of time too, because I realized that in my work it was everywhere, and I've started to write this series. There is 10 years now, and he was in it from the start. So it's strange, but it's nice. Anyway.
Well, and I guess I'm just trying to, because for me it's been very different, because I haven't had the same matron or patron, and for a while I had no patron, just a matron, and I'm still now going through some sort of transition with my relationship with deity. So I guess I guess maybe we can even talk about how you view deity. I mean, because there's different perspectives on what and who deity are, which may give us some more understanding as to why you have been working with this particular set, this goddess and this god, for such a long time. So do you want to share how you view deity?
Yeah, we'll try at least. I will try with my awful English. I did this one just to see you.
Your English is good. You speak well.
Thank you. So my view of the gods is, I suppose, a bit complicated, or maybe not, but I will try to explain it. In my eyes, there is among everything and in everything one mighty force, the one God, if I may say. And around him, maybe coming from him, probably coming from this force, in my eyes, in my opinion, there is plenty of other light being we see as gods. And everyone is working hand in hand to help us grow. It is my perspective. So for me, for an example, Jesus is one of the many gods that exist. But also, maybe I should say that I think there is also gods that are probably God forms, coming from the curse, coming from the face of the humanity, and then it became a soul form and then a God form. And so
do you think hold on, I want to ask before you move forward. Yeah. So there's one, and I'm going to interpret what you said into how I view it, because I think we're very similar. So for me, there is the all that there is, the energy of everything, the universal source. So that's the big God that you, right. And then from that, you said that there are the light beings or the many gods. So that would be like the pantheons, the Egyptian, the Greek, the Roman, all these gods. And then you said God forms. So is your perspective that there is the one source that sort of created or projects into the gods, the divine gods, and then God forms come from sort of humanity projecting upward? So we have deity projecting downward gods, and humanity projecting upward God forms.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Okay.
And of course, the knowing or believing that which God or one God or one else is or is not a God form, is project from above or is coming from below, if I may say.
Yes.
Is a question as above, so below.
Yes.
It's kind of my way to view things.
Do you think, I know this might be going, but this is definitely a relationship with gods. Do you think that when you encounter a being, a spiritual entity, you personally, and this is just you personally, a question for you, you can determine whether it's a God form or a divine God? Are you able to determine that?
I'm not sure, because I think there is more than one reality, and our way to perceive things is unique. So I might think that I can do the difference between a God form raising from below and a God, divine God, projecting from above. I might think that I am able to, but maybe I'm wrong. This is only my perception.
Do you think, my mind is like reeling now with this topic, do you think that it's possible for God forms, the things that the entities that humanity created, can then become a divine God?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so, because the energy, they are coming to life from the love and the trust and all the belief that were put in them, in it, and this God or this one other God.
So do you think then,
yeah.
do you see my mind? It's like,
Yeah.
If we were to go along with your thought process, Satan.
Yeah.
Was Satan a God form, then became a divine God, or was Satan a divine God to begin with, or no such thing as Satan? And I'm not talking about the devil, because I feel like the devil is different than Satan, and I feel like Lucifer is different than the devil and Satan.
Me too, because
they're three different things. Yeah.
The concepts of them are slightly different. And I'm not pretending there that I am mastering any of it.
Right. This is just your opinion. This is just us having a conversation about this. So
casual talk about. And yeah, I do think that Satan was a God form and kind of ascent.
I agree. Oh my God, I agree with you. Yep.
Again, we
of course, right?
Of course. Yeah, I just think so. I do think so. And there is, I think, many of God form that ascended and that was melt into the energy of the mighty energy. And yeah, I think that, and it is for me kind of difficult to say this one is a God form, but for Satan, it's an exception, because I think truly that he is firstly a God form.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when I first encountered these spiritual deities, these entities, I think at the beginning it was hard for me to determine, oh, this one's like a spirit guide, or this one is a servitor, or this one is a beloved dead. It was hard for me to determine what was deity, what was not, because they were just all spiritual entities to me. Until I guess, you commune with that energy, and you communicate and you exchange. And then for me, at least in my categorizing, this is divine God, this is a God form, this is a servitor, this is just a thought form that hasn't really even become anything more than that. Until you encounter these things, I don't think it's so easy to determine the energetic frequencies.
Yeah, I agree. It's not easy at all. It takes communication. It takes times. We have to invest times to understand, or at least to try to understand, because the one thing I know is that I don't know anything. I still have.
But you know everything. It's that whole, I don't know anything, but I know everything kind of
thing. Absolutely. And I'm trying all the time to learn more, to dig more, to push the boundaries, and to see, as I was saying in the previous episode, to see how far I can go.
And I think you mentioned that, for everybody, it's going to be different too. And I agree with that, your experience with, a specific deity, even your exchange with a deity is going to be different than my exchange with that same deity because of your understandings of yourself, your experience, your relationship with that deity, and mine.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's the thing that tends to pisses me off a lot on the YouTube channels I may see around the web. It's the people who pretends to tell you how you should or should not act or communicate or see or approach a deity. It is not valid. Only you can determine, how do you say that?
Determine, yep.
Determine, thank you. Only you can determine how to communicate. And anyway, the deity that you want to talk with will anyway choose a specific way to interact with you and you alone, because we are all unique soul.
Right.
There isn't such things as one path or one truth. And it's the same in the pagan world. There is no one way to communicate with a specific god.
I agree.
It's not. Yeah.
Right.
No.
I agree. And I also think in that same hand, I think our traditional understandings of deities came from something. So, I mean, for example, if you are so we'll say like Lilith. Yeah. So you're going to approach Lilith, and she's a dark goddess. And so our understandings, her mythology, it gives sort of characteristics of how she was perceived. Now, I would say that all of it may not be true for you, but there's going to be something, there's going to be some shred of something in her mythology that will ring true for you. I honestly feel. I don't think you can look at the mythologies of a specific deity and say that is completely garbage. None of it is true. Because if you come to that, I would encourage you to spend more time and really ask some more questions about that specific deity, because maybe you've perceived it to be one deity, and in essence, you're actually communing with a completely different deity. You just thought it was this deity. And like I said, I'm not going to say the whole mythology is all going to be accurate for you.
No,
but something in that, something, even if it's one little aspect, should, I would say, ring true.
Ring true. Yeah. When I was talking about the way you should communicate, doesn't mean that it was about the aspects of the deity. It was only about the way you will communicate, and if he or she will communicate with you. But regarding mythology, I agree. There is a reason for those myths to have been written and piled up. There is a reason. You will find your reason. But if you do not resonate at all with anything about the deity that you think you are communicating with, so maybe it's not the deity you think it is.
Yeah, I agree. I was going with the thought with, how some of those channels here on YouTube will tell you that if you're going to approach, and I'm going to use Lilith again, if you're going to approach Lilith, you must approach her with this. She only accepts these offerings. You must use these candles. You must go to this place, and she will only speak to you at 3 a.m. on a Friday, because that's how Lilith communicates. And that's the only way Lilith communicates. And if you're talking to some other entity at 1 a.m. on a Wednesday, it is not Lilith. I disagree with that. I mean, even if some of that is basis in some of her mythology, that specific part of the mythology may not work, may not ring true for you. And your relationship is going to be different with Lilith than my relationship with Lilith would be if I had a relationship with her.
Yeah, I agree. It's this kind of advices that pisses me off, because, all right, you can tell about the way you do or did contact a specific god or goddesses, but all right, it was you. The things you experience, even if it was relying on some mythology, will probably not be true for someone else. I mean, gosh, they are gods. They are not some kind of, I don't know, Swiss watch that you have to, that you do not have to rewind the watch at a specific moment for it to work. They are gods. God's form or divine gods. It doesn't matter anymore. They know more than you do, and the way they choose to communicate or to reach to you, the sign you may see would probably be different from one person to one another. And yeah,
so your gods approached you. What are your thoughts about people, humans, individuals approaching gods?
For me, it's totally okay if you want to try to work with different gods or entities, or, you know, like Medusa, or some myth, some personified aspect of humanity, like Medusa and else. It's perfectly okay you can, I think, totally build a relationship. But for me, and it's only my view, my perspective, building a relationship with a god wouldn't make this god your patron god.
I agree.
For me, it's not the same thing. You see, and it's concepts that are difficult for me to explain because I'm not good enough in English to.
So I agree. It's and then maybe I can verbalize a little more, and because I think we're on the same page with this too.
Yeah, I would like you to.
That, you know, working, I feel, and maybe this is the same as you, that when you have a matron or patron god, it's like a special relationship with that particular deity, but that does not mean you cannot work with others. So it's almost like having loosely like a mother and a father, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to have uncles and aunts and grandmas and other family. But your relationship with these two specific individuals are going to be very different.
That's it. That was I was trying to say, and I feel like sometimes the difference between the relationship you may have with any gods of your choice and the relationship you have with your matron and patron gods is a bit confusing for people. I think I did see on Amino, you know, the app you can download on your phone.
Yeah.
I did see on Amino several people who were building a relationship with a god they had chosen. They consciously choose to work with this one. This, in my eyes, is perfectly okay, but this is not your patron god or your matron goddess.
Okay, I get it. And I agree, because I feel like matron and patrons choose us, or we have some sort of agreement before we manifest in physical to work with them. And the ones we specifically say, okay, I want to work with Loki, or I want to work with the Morgan. It's something we choose, and it doesn't diminish that relationship with that god or goddess, but it is very different. Like you said, when the god chooses you, or you've had some sort of agreement prior to manifesting to work with these divine energies at some point in your life. I feel like they're different. I agree. I feel like
it's different. But it's both are perfectly okay. As you said, it doesn't diminish in any way the work you will get done, and the relationship you build, the trust, and it doesn't diminish it in any way. But it's just not the same thing.
Right. And I find it interesting, at least for me, the gods that were my matron or patrons in my lifetime thus far are generally ones I do not want. Like the first goddess, the very first matron I had was Bast, the Egyptian goddess, the cat Bastet or Bast. And I had no patron at the time, which made perfect sense to me looking back, because I was getting out of my second marriage. I had children. I had to fight. I had to be protective, but I still had to be motherly and nurturing. So it was very, cat-like with no patron, because I was, separating myself from this very strong, domineering, abusive, masculine energy. So the fact that I was shying and shrinking away from anything like that and was looking for a more fierce feminine. So that made sense. And I was okay with working with Bast. This is great. This is wonderful. When she sort of transitioned, and when my life was going through a transition, I had a reading at a metaphysical shop that I was working at. And one of the readers did a reading for me, and she said, "Oh, are you working with Isis? Because Isis is coming through for you." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And at this time in the YouTube pagan community, everybody was reading this book about Isis, and everyone had Isis as their matron, and they were Isis Unveiled, I think, or the Priestess of Isis. I'm not sure. It was one of these books, and everybody was reading it, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about doing devotionals to her, and this is what you should offer her. And I didn't want to be part of that. I wanted someone unique, someone different. I didn't want Isis. And this reader said, "Isis is coming through for you." And I said, no, she's not. Well, that's what it is. Whatever. And I remember leaving going, nope, she got it all wrong. I'm not working with Isis. No way. No. I want to work with someone like Athena or someone completely different. And then I started having dreams and visions of snakes, like these two snakes, almost like the staff of Hermes. Yes, the caduceus, yes. And I'm like, why am I dreaming about snakes? Oh, this has got to be like Medusa. Like, no one at that time was really working with Medusa. And I said, and there was this image of this crown and these snakes. And don't you know, Isis came up. I'm like, are you kidding me? Isis and snakes? I would have never put the two together. Never. And apparently it was a common symbolism. And I eventually, after then having dreams of like wings, I thought angels, no, the wings and the snakes and the crown. And it all led me down the path to Isis. So I feel like, fighting it almost is a sign when there's a goddess that you, or God, you just don't want to work with. That's probably when you're going to end up working with at some point.
Yeah, it's probably because maybe it is relying on some shadow work or shadow aspect of yourself. And as I think they are here to help you evolve, then at one point or another, you will have to deal with your darker aspect or simply your shadow aspect. And they will put that out for you.
Yeah. Or I mean, with Isis, it was, she was helping me with the coven. You know, it was around the time I was going to establish the coven and magical workings and a lot of spell crafting and all, yet motherly. So it made sense, you know, when she came into my life. It was very much about magic and that practice of magic and manifesting. And, you know, then when the coven dissolved, and I was looking for more healing, is when the goddess Danu came into my life, and it was a more personal healing process, and that whole transition into that. And again, it made sense, you know, when she appeared. I didn't fight her, though, so that was interesting. It was more like, oh, she's always sort of been hanging around, just waiting for the time when I was ready and willing to work with her. So that was interesting.
It is. And should we talk about the fact that, at least I think, that some of our gods, patron gods, are coming from past life. And when I hear that some people say that this god is dead, or something like this.
I'm sorry, it cut you off. This what?
When I hear someone who said that this or this god is dead, or this or this god is not from your culture, and you are from a dead culture, that you should not work with it, that also is unnerving, because you had probably past lives or other lives. Who can tell you weren't already working with this particular god or pantheon? And I think that the most powerful relationship we might have had with gods are following us through times.
Yeah.
And I agree. You can, you know, return to a specific pantheon because you already worked with it in another part of your life process.
I agree because I remember, I mean, I've always had a fascination with Egypt and the Egyptian pantheon, even when I was a student in high school. I remember doing reports, you know, when in English class, we had to do a report on mythology. I think we were learning about myths, and our English teacher had us, this was in the 8th grade, so it was junior high school, to choose a pantheon and choose a god and read the mythology and then do a report on it, you know? And I remember being fascinated with Egypt and the pharaohs and the gods and that whole thing. And I then, when I started, even though I fought Isis, when I finally embraced her, doing past life regressions with the coven and being very fascinated with past life and going through a class at the metaphysical shop, I remember working in a temple of Isis at the time and being a priestess, sacred priestess of Isis at the time, and working in the temple. So obviously there is a connection for me.
Yeah, there is a link. And this link, I truly believe that it is following us through lives.
Right.
Yes.
I agree. So some of those gods that call us, even though it may look to people right now, I do not look like I come from the continent of Africa. And if you look at my bloodline, I did ancestry.com. There's nothing there from my ancestors, the physical, at least in this lifetime. But there is definitely an energetic connection for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's going to be true of others too. I'm not that unique.
Yeah, it's going to be true because it's logical. I would say it's logical. We are numerous to have had numerous lives. So yeah, at those time, paganism was the thing. Everyone was pagan.
Yeah.
So if you had to believe in something or in someone, you had to follow one of the paths that we know today as
Right.
dead practices.
And I think you
So
and I talked about the whole idea of dead gods. And I think,
yeah,
we agreed the fact that if you know the name of a god, if you are aware of the name of the god, then that god isn't dead. Because just the fact that you know the name of the god, or you know their mythology, it keeps them alive. I mean, honestly, I think we both agreed that the gods that are dead, we don't know of them because they're
absolutely.
dead.
Yeah, because at any time, if you read a name as you just said, then you're giving to the god energy.
Yes.
You are sparing thought to him or her.
Right.
Then you bring him or her to life. So
Right.
he is not dead or she's not dead. And Renee was also saying this in an episode of the last season, one of the last episodes of the previous season.
Right.
And yeah, that it is absolutely true. And plus, who could actually be arrogant enough to declare that this God or these practices or these beliefs are dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly with a God.
Right.
For me, it just pointed out an oversized ego.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
because
that,
how would anybody be able to determine whether a god or a religion or a pantheon or anything was dead? I agree.
yeah. And if
Just
there,
because everybody isn't aware of a specific god or a specific practice doesn't mean that someone somewhere isn't practicing or following or offering or working with a specific god.
absolutely, that we may never have heard about
Right.
at any point in our life. Then, and then we sort of come back to the multiple realities that I was talking previously, at least I think. For you, then, you do not know the name of the god or anything like this. So for you, he's more than dead, is non-existent.
Right.
But for someone else, he's truly alive. So your reality is different from his or her reality. And there are more than one truth. Again, one
Right.
truth. There is more than one truth. Sorry.
Right. Right.
I forgot this.
That's okay. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. There definitely is more than one truth, and there's definitely more than one version of something as well. And when you take the gods and the deities and the mythologies that we understand, we need to look at the culture and the time and the place that those gods existed in to truly understand their relationship with the people, their people, the people that worked with and worshipped and communed with those particular gods, because it reflects the attitudes and the values and the morals and the things that were important to those people at that time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And obviously those things changes for us. For me, to explain what thought I have in mind is that for me there is no such things as neo-pagan. It is not neo-pagan. It is not neo-paganism. It is paganism, and that's it. Because life reinvents itself always, all over. It's new all over again anytime we enter a practice, a belief. And so the paganism here isn't neo-paganism, it's just now. Still paganism. Obviously, we do practices differently from the people that were living in ancient ages. It's obvious, but it doesn't make our way to practice some kind of, replaying with missing spot in it and imperfect ways of no.
Yeah.
It is not.
Well, even the Reconstructionalists who try to worship the gods in the old ways are still doing it differently because they're living in a modern age. So even if you try to replicate your attitudes, your values, your morals, just your way of living in an everyday life is going to be different than the person who you're trying to copy. You don't have the same concerns that they did. You don't have the same problems that they did. So their approach to the gods and worship of the gods is going to be completely different because their attitudes are different. And maybe their needs and their desires might be stronger because they relied more on just faith. You know?
And again, it doesn't mean that wanting to reconstruct an old way of how do we say this?
Worship or practice.
Yeah, worship. Thank you. Of an old way to worship a god are wrong. It's a perfectly, but you will still be in the now and here.
Right.
You cannot escape your lifetime. You cannot. So that's why, for me, there is no such thing as neo-pagan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I suppose you can escape it, but that would take some magic first.
yeah. That's true. A huge, perfect magic to escape it.
Well, you could, but that's not going to change. Even with that idea, it's not going to change who you are. And you're still not going to be that person 1,000 years ago. You're not going to be that
bring
person.
with you what you are.
Exactly. Your experiences. Right. And that's still right. It's still going to be different.
It's still going to be different, obviously, because we are not living the way they were living. That's But it does mean our practice is less interesting, less intense than there.
Right. So to look at the witch's relationship to the gods, do you think that, and again, this is just our opinions, do you think that the gods play a role in every witch's life? Do you think, because I know I have met witches who say that they're atheistic witches, that they don't believe in a god or the gods or work with any gods.
I don't think necessarily they have, the gods have to play a role, at least not visibly. And for me, it is perfectly okay if I get to meet a witch that doesn't believe in any forms of gods. All right. There is energy, plenty of energy in nature. But considering the fact that I think nature is a part, you know where I'm going. Considering the fact I believe that nature is a part of God's and the mighty energy, if I may say, the mighty one, the great one, the all. So even when they are atheistic, they are actually working with a part of God's energy, of God.
And that's how I view it too. I definitely, and I would love if there's any witches out there who are, atheist. They just do not recognize or worship or believe in a god. Because as I agree with Obsidian Fire, that for me, the all is a non-personal, it's a non-personal energy, a universal source. That is the all. And we personify, or they are personified in the gods, the divine gods, and the God forms that we interact with, I understand that not all witches work with that. I get that not all witches work with those personified gods/God forms. But as you believe, the all, the universal life source, the universal energy is manifested in the elements and in Gaia, the earth, being a sentient being that it is. If a witch works with that, then I sort of see them as still working with the divine source.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think the way I view the mighty one, as I like to call it, to be playful, I think it, in my view, it is immanent and transcendent. It going from, as above, so below again. And the gods, the divine gods and god forms, I think, is a way to help us to better understand the mysteries of universe. It's a way to get closer to us, because in our material shape here in this incarnation, in these bodies, we are kind of blind.
Yeah, I think we're kind of like limited.
Limited. Thank you. Yeah. We are limited in our comprehension.
Yeah.
And so the divine God are easier for us to approach and to understand. So I don't know, and I don't necessarily want to emit any opinion about the primary source. I don't know if it is conscient or not. I don't know, and I don't think I need to know from now.
Right.
And my view on it kind of changed from time to time. Sometimes I perceive it like personified, sentient and conscious, and sometimes more like a big source of wisdom that spread across the world. And
so, I think I agree. I think that energy, that the all, as I'm going to label it, is so immense, so expansive. It is transcendent. It is immanent. It is everything that for our human minds to really understand it, we really can't, because we are so limited. But I don't. And I guess when I say it, for me, when I explain it as being not a personal and not personalized, means that it's not concerned. There is no concern. There's no concept of being concerned about whether I'm doing right or doing wrong. There is no like moral code of the all, because the all encompasses everything. So if you, so I mean, if I'm a bad girl, the all isn't going to punish me, because the all is beyond that human relative terms of good and bad. It incorporates both and is nothing, is neither kind of thing.
And sometimes, as I was saying, sometimes I go from one perspective to another. So I would not put my last word on it, because it evolves constantly. So sometimes I feel like this and sometimes differently. So I prefer not to talk too much about this, because it is a concept that I still have to get a grip on.
Which is understandable. And I think, at least for me, when we go from that sort of expansive web of energy that weaves and is made of and makes us and all that, and we sort of bring it down to a more personified understanding of the gods, Aphrodite and Zeus and Mercury and Lilith and Hecate and Isis and all of those pantheons. I think that's when we get the understanding and the more personal relationship and gods that we can sort of relate to in some aspect. They're still not human beings, and I don't think the divine gods maybe ever were human, but maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe some of them were and some of them weren't. I'm not even sure.
Maybe something along those lines. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I think that's when we get the understanding of morality. I think that's when we get the more personal aspects and characteristics. This one's a loving God. This one's more harsh. This one is a God of the dead. This one is a God of life. That's when we get the understanding and the complexities of everything that sort of makes the human experience. Yeah.
I agree. And I think we need to, because we are made from emotions. Right. Emotions are a part of our energy, a part of our power too. And we need to have someone to rely on, to better understand. I mean, for me, a world without any single piece of love would be unbearable. Right. I need to find this emotion around me, and there is I suppose different needs like mine, and that's when personified divine God or God forms are entering on the scene to help us, to guide us, to inspire us.
So your gods, your matron, patron, and any other gods that you may work with, what is their role within your practice?
Mostly guidance. It is rare. Yeah, thank you. For me to ask them to interfere. The last time one of them did actually step on and do something for me, it was an offer. It came to me as an offer. I didn't ask for it.
It came to you as a what? I'm sorry, it cut you off.
As an offer.
An offer. Okay.
It was my choice. I could have accepted or not, but I didn't ask for it.
Okay.
So mostly I am seeking guidance. I am seeking inspiration. I am seeking help to better know myself and to learn more about me and then about the world around me.
Right.
It's forces who help me to stay still and to stand up and to still walk forward in my life. It's a very personal and intimate relationship with both of them, but it is different with her than it is with him. Obviously, it's not the same thing. Yeah. Right. And when you said when you were talking about the God that might be perceived as dark God or harsh God or loving God, and even this might not be totally true for you or
right,
because my matron goddess isn't particularly known for her loving and aspect and nurturing aspect, but with me, she is.
But then, you know, and when we say things like that, I mean, I think that it's going to depend on, like we said, the individual. So for what and how we perceive these words that we have given these gods. So, for example, I'm going to go back to Lilith. As an example, Lilith is perceived as a dark goddess. You know, in her mythology, she was the first woman that God, the Abrahamic God, created, yet she refused to lay beneath Adam, and she flew off and became perceived as a demon or whatever. She may not be perceived as a loving mother type, but for someone who maybe needs a structure or maybe needs a rebellious figure to show them love, that person working with Lilith may perceive her as a loving mother, you know? So it's definitely the individual witch or the individual working with Lilith to perceive how she is manifested for them. But for someone else, she may look to be a harsh or a darker goddess.
Absolutely.
So definitely, like you said,
it's unique because they are coming, if they do come for you to interact with you, they are coming for a reason. And I suppose and I think that something in you resonate with them.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a meeting more than a choice again.
Yeah, and I agree. I almost feel like when we talk about gods we choose or the gods that choose us, even if we rebel against it, it is a meeting. It's like a recognition. And it's almost like that idea that when you accept the invitation or you accept the summons or you answer the call or the knock on the door or you see the signs and you welcome their advice or their presence and you work with them, it's definitely a recognition like, oh, it's you. Oh, hi. Kind of thing.
Then it may sense everything start to build from this point. At the second you're meeting with, and then start to build.
I agree. So this kind of brings us to the end of our hour. It's amazing
already?
That the hour has already gone by. Yes. It brings us to the end of our hour. If you've watched this and you have questions in regards to our perspective or our understanding or our work with the gods as witches, please make sure you put them as comments. If you're a witch who identifies as being, you know, an atheist, we'd love to hear from you. How the gods, if they have any aspect or our thoughts on obsidian, fire, and my thoughts on, you know, the all and all that. We're interested. We want to hear from you because I will definitely check back. I read all my comments. And if Obsidian doesn't get to them, I'll forward them to her as well. So yeah, this wraps up the episode of the witch's relationship with the gods. This was the first in a series. We're going to do more the witch's relationship with. So keep an eye on that. If you're interested in more content that I make, check Lunar Wisdom's Patreon page. The link is in the information section. I do have a blog over on lunarwisdom.net, Songs of a Cricket. I have lots of information. I'm doing YouTube challenges, ABCs of paganism over there. Check those out. And don't forget, check me out on Facebook. I am under CricketSong, Lunar Wisdom. And I do have a Facebook group, Wyrds, Witches, and Witchcraft. Go check that out as well. Obsidian Fire is over there too. So you'll get more opportunity to interact with her. So I guess that's it.
That's it. So, ok. Merci de nous avoir suivis. J'espère que vous avez passé un bon moment avec nous. Et on se revoit au prochain épisode. Bye.
Blessed be everyone. See you next week.